I'd like to share a story with you about Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, and how this story connects with what we're doing here in MCD Therapy. Marshall Rosenberg back in the day would do workshops with many people, relationship workshops, and he would oftentimes begin the workshop by asking for the couple who had had the longest running challenge or difficulty, something that they had been trying to work out for years and they just couldn't seem to get through. They were at an impasse. Who has had that for the longest? And sometimes he would wind up with a couple that had been together for 15, 20 years, and they had just had this one issue they just couldn't get through. He would then have that couple describe briefly the problem, and usually what would happen next was pretty predictable and probably something you have seen in therapy. Your own clients that you work with do. Each partner would begin by explaining the story, what was going wrong, what the other was doing wrong, what needed to change, why their position made sense as to how it needed to change in that particular way. In other words, they were focusing on strategies, positions, stories, but what they generally were not talking about was the underlying needs. And Marcia would gently interrupt as they were speaking, interrupt for connection. He would direct the conversation away from the strategies and the story towards the underlying feelings and needs. This might happen by saying things like, asking them what they're feeling right now as they talk about this. Asking them what need of yours is not being met in this situation. If they didn't have language around that, maybe he would guess needs words to get to that heart of it. He might ask them, what do you think your partner is needing? Right? As he guided them, he would translate these thoughts, judgments, strategies into needs. And he would oftentimes wind up reflecting something back towards the end that sounded like, so I'm hearing around this conversation around money, you're really wanting a sense of security, and you're really wanting a sense of play and adventure or exploration. And he would name this in an affirming way. He would support them in checking in to see if they could really hear that and get that about their partner. Oftentimes they knew each other well, and when they had it said in that way, they could get that. They could see, oh yeah, of course my partner really wants to have play. Of course my partner really wants to have security, right? And there could be this affirming he would do, but also at some point checking in with the couple and seeing if they could hold that need with care for their partner. As he did this, once both people had a sense their need mattered to the other, was understood, was held with care, then they would begin the process of exploring possible strategies for how this need could be met. This is that negotiation process. But it became much more collaborative and creative because it was really centered around the needs that were at the heart of what this challenge really had always been about. And oftentimes, within about 15, 20 minutes, the couple would arrive at a solution, something they've been trying to reach for 15, maybe 20 years. And it sometimes would be so incredibly surprising to them. Sometimes people would almost feel like, gosh, is this magical thing that Marshall Rosenberg can do? And he would oftentimes reflect back something along the lines of that the real problem was that no one had helped them to hear each other's needs. And without that information and without centering the collaboration around the needs, there were going to be these misses. So strategies can easily be in conflict, but needs never are. The need for security, the need for play around money are not inherently in conflict with each other. It can just become a process, though, of getting collaborative and creative enough to find solutions, get really creative and find strategies. Sometimes we need to talk to someone else and get someone else's ideas in there to really generate strategies, especially in the beginning for couples. If they've been really stuck to a particular strategy they've longed for, it can help to get a menu of options that maybe the therapist can offer and reflect back. without attachment to which one's the right one. There's just these 5 different ways I could see. Do any of those resonate? Kind of open that creative brainstorming process. So we as therapists can certainly learn to listen for and reflect the needs that are under the strategies that clients are battling around. But much more importantly, we can be a support in helping our clients learn to clarify and listen for and understand the needs that are happening right there in the moment in the therapy room, so that they can also know how to look for those and move towards collaboration and creativity outside the therapy room. So if you want to strengthen your capacity in your work in this area, I invite you to begin by building a vocabulary of needs words, and the feelings help to point us to those needs. And there's a list in the link down below. Welcome to download that. It could be as you're listening to clients, you're turning your empathy towards listening for those needs. Could be in your daily life, just taking opportunities as you hear struggles happening between people to get curious about the needs that are behind these. And as you listen for those, just really starting to see what's at the heart. What is this couple? What are these people trying to figure out? What's at stake here? And remember, these needs are all positive in nature. They serve life. Security feels so good to have. Play feels so good to have. Neither of them are the problem. But the confusion sure can be a problem when we don't know what's in there, what need is in there. So hope you find this helpful as you begin to learn more about needs-based negotiation. And if you feel inspired to learn more, feel free to join us for upcoming workshops. And as always, in whatever way you work, thank you. And let's continue to lead with love.